3. Into the
To the
next life
life
with Drew and
and
me.
me. I'm not a good singer, so
No.
that's what you get. You just get it.
No.
You get what you get, Drew. Hello.
Okay, welcome to the Drew and Me podcast, and we are joined again by the wonderful Alyssa Truskowski.
Thank you so much for having me back. It was a blast last time talking movies and going like deep on them. So I'm so glad to just be back hanging out.
Yeah, that was really fun. That was tons of fun. We talked about Richard Linklater movies in the first episode. So if you haven't seen the first one and you're just watching this one, check out the first one too.
Yeah, because we nerd out on his movies and talking about our love for indie movies, and that definitely feels like that filtered into like how we picked today's ones that we're going to talk about.
Yeah, man. Yep, on the Drew and Me podcast, we talk about music, movies, and sketches, and we're going to talk about the movies Rachel Getting Married, which is probably in my top 5 movies of all time, mainly because I like how it's shot. And we're going to briefly talk about Blue Valentine, and we're going to talk about our all-time favorite 3 Smashing Pumpkins songs. But as favorite lists go, for me anyway, except for like a few exceptions, the all-time favorite list usually changes. So it's like all-time favorite songs today. Okay.
Yeah, right now of the moment. It was hard for me to pick just 3, and I mostly picked hits. So, I mean, we can definitely talk about it, but just because we're picking, our 6 total, there's so many other good ones. So I'm hyped to talk about it.
Sounds good. Well, let's jump right in. What would your number 3 all-time Smashing Pumpkins song be?
1979 would be probably that would be number 3. It's in no order. I think that would actually be closer to my number 1, but 1979 was just like both nostalgic for me because it was like one of the first Smashing Pumpkins songs like I had heard from Siamese Dream, and it's just like it just feels good. It's the kind of like jam you want to like drive around in a car to, or it feels like a sunshiny day. It had a great video. I just always liked that with the song.
Yeah, I feel like it's perfect for like any mood or like any time. And it showcases Corgan's vocals extremely well. That does like a great job and kind of the chorus, and I feel like it's a very well constructed song, and there's just like so many. It's just like it's very well faceted, but it's also a good hit, and it's also very 90s. I would pair it with the Marcy Playground classic
Sex and Candy.
Yep, Sex and Candy. I would listen to these two together. Like I feel like if you're like feeling that, if you're like really kind of jonesing on that, listen to 1979, then Sex and Candy, and it's riding the same wave.
Interesting. I misspoke because for whatever reason I conflated with the song today. So I said it was on Siamese Dream, but I just looked at it. It is on Melancholy. The thing I like about it is that even though I'm not in Gen X, it feels like a quintessential Gen X song, right? It is kind of just like self-reflective, but also just kind of like like, we're just like doing things, like life is just whatever, like that's how it feels to me. I also don't know like where it like comes from, like, but like 1979 is like a really pivotal year for
Mm,
this like part of a like there's a couple things that are meaningful personally to me about 1979, but it also is just kind of like I associate that year with this like people who were kind of born around that time like are in that last wave of like Gen X like
mm.
dumb, you know what I mean? So I don't know. It also has like that whatever that little like backbeat moment is, like that count off that like duh, you know, like that little
Yeah,
like
yeah,
voice in the background. It's just
yeah,
so
yeah.
the layering of that song is just really like interesting without being like too much.
Mm. Yeah, because it's good, but it paves the way for like the bigger parts of the song. But it's a good way to kind of get things started. And yeah, I remember really like I think I listened to it in homeroom or something in like high school or something. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's a good song to like start the day with and stuff like that. Um, let's see. I know it definitely predated anything that 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 uh uh that uh that that Moby did. I know
Yeah.
it definitely predated Moby, but it sounds like a Moby song. So you could say that, or that beginning-ish part. So particularly the Moby song Porcelain.
Okay. Interesting.
It kind of has a similar kind of sample or a mix. I'm not sure if that beginning part is a sample. You definitely know music way better than I do. So
I
um
know this particular like era of music because I was like a music fanatic as a teenager of like alternative rock radio. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
this particular type of thing, if you ask me about like the second or third Green Day album, I got you. Can't tell you anything else after Dookie, but I got you. So, you know, this is one of those things like where I can definitely like see it being really emblematic of the time because like I remember I got Melancholy and Infinite Sadness, the double disc CD when it came out. I got it for Christmas, and it was like a big deal. It was and like the vibe of the whole album didn't really align with 1979. 1979 sounded like older Smashing Pumpkins in my mind, but also I think like you said, it definitely was also reflective of this time of like Marcy Playground. I think of it's not the same, but like Marcy Playground Semisonic was like that closing time
Mhm.
song was like kind of the same era where it was just
Yeah,
like
yeah.
it was this to I mean he nailed it on the name. It was this like melancholy time where it's just everything was a, like just a little like you're like I'm not depressed, but I'm just kind of like I'm just like in a rut today. Like that was the vibe of music at that time,
Yeah.
like post grunge, but still like heavily influenced and like evolving from that.
Yeah. Um, and very MTV.
Oh yeah.
Let's see. Maybe not this song, but I'd pair Radiohead, like Karma Police and Paranoid Android,
Yep. Yep.
with one of my choices on my list in terms of songs that sound similar. So for like similar sounding songs.
Yeah.
Uh which Radiohead also a very melancholy band for certain records. Because I feel like Radiohead, you could dive really deep into it, and you could listen to Radiohead like for days and come up with like a lot of different variety, because I know that they really like to play with genres and they're very versatile.
Yeah.
I'm kind of a Radiohead novice, but for some of the songs I like, they really remind me of some Smashing Pumpkins songs, particularly Adore. So Alyssa, if you had to say, would you say 1979 is the largest Smashing Pumpkins hit?
No.
Oh, what hit would you say was more successful?
The rock jams. Today has the longevity, right? Like it
Yeah,
has like that iconic like entry like guitar like
yeah.
riff that most people who can't play guitar still learn how to play if they're my age, because it's like simple enough you can like figure it out. But like I
Um,
would say other choices, and mostly because of its impact, was Bullet with Butterfly Wings. Like the world is a vampire, like how many times was that song played? Like it's
mm,
the rock jam. I feel like that probably was like super recognizable,
mm.
because it extended, I don't know, I feel like it was definitely had to be on like multiple vampire movie soundtracks. Like,
Oh,
do you know what I
oh,
mean? Like Vampire
okay.
Hunter movie soundtracks, like whatever,
Oh,
right? It's like a montage scene like song.
yeah, yeah.
It's anthemic. I think one of your picks also could be, I don't know if you want to talk about your number 3 pick, but I think that one also might
Mm,
have been a bigger hit than 1979. But I think 1979 is a song now that like you could hear it in a restaurant on a playlist and it'd be like, yeah, this is a jam, this is a banger. Whereas like maybe Bullet with Butterfly Wings doesn't have the same like widespread long-term appeal, but I
mm,
think it was a bigger hit. Also,
mm.
Tonight is like, that one was like the video, and just like that was I think the first single that was released from the double album. Like that one always is like remembered by at least a certain generation, my
Mm.
generation. So
You said the video for Tonight?
mhm. Have you ever seen it?
I haven't. I'm
It's beautiful.
gonna have to take a look at it. Actually, could you send a link of the video in the chat?
Heck yeah, I can.
That'd be
um
awesome.
it's it's like a take on this like um this old film, and I looked it up because I forgot what it was. But like if you were to take like a history of film class like I did in college, it's called the the Voyage, and it just has like all these iconic scenes like the man in the moon. It looks like a vaudeville play. It's like
Oh,
filmed really dreamy. I know we
okay.
talked about Courtney Love and Hole last time, who
Yeah.
Billy Corgan is like tied to musically, and he co-wrote a bunch of my favorite songs with Courtney Love. But um, it's like before you had filter for like video and stuff like that. It was
Okay.
definitely filmed in a dreamy
Mm,
like way.
okay.
Um, so yeah, you'll have to see it tonight. At
Okay.
least like from when it came out in whatever year.
Mm.
Um, yeah, because it took home 6 Video Music Awards in 1996. But whenever it came out, like that was like the one you couldn't escape. Like you always saw it.
Uh,
But I'll drop this in the chat. Let me grab this link.
yeah, man. That's awesome. Like, so growing up, I grew up in a family that didn't have cable, so
Mm-hmm.
watching MTV was like a big treat. So we get to watch it when we went to like the Outer Banks, like the beach, or to my grandparents' house, like when we actually
Yeah.
had access to cable. And I was pretty young, like I was like 7, 6,
Yeah.
and I had an older sister. So she's 36 now. She's 6 years older than me. I'm
Yeah,
30.
we're the same. Your sister and I are really close in age. I just turned 37.
Congratulations. Happy
Thanks.
37, Alyssa. Okay.
Thanks. I'm in my late 30s now and I love it. It's great. No regrets. No regrets.
um, 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 that's awesome. Yeah, I know that we really talked about the show. We talked about we talked about the show Daria
Mm-hmm.
last time, and
Yeah.
I remember that my sister watched it, and I never could understand it because like it was just like okay, because I guess my perception of how teens in the 90s behaved and like teen angst was different. Like I guess I saw it differently or didn't see it depicted on TV. So I didn't understand that it was supposed to be very kind of real life, very slice of life, very like it was supposed to be very meta, like
Mm-hmm.
super meta. Like
Yeah.
it was supposed to be okay, like think Seattle, think a person who would go into a record store, kind of browse, might buy something, might not, probably will put something back, probably will
Mm-hmm.
criticize it and be like, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Um
And it wasn't a funny show, like unless you're on board with that brand of sarcasm, like it
yeah,
just wasn't a funny show. So you're like, wait, and the characters like the mom and stuff like that were because it's a sitcom structure, but like
yeah,
everybody instead of everybody, I don't know, being like antagonistic, like you're like the antagonist is the hero, like Daria is the anti-hero. So it's like it takes a really common structure, flips it on its head, but then it's also not funny, and you're like, wait, what? Like, do I like Daria? Am I Daria? What's wrong with Brittany? She seems nice. Like, do you know what I mean? Like the cheerleader, you're just like, I don't get it. Like,
yeah. Like I was honestly a lot more into her sister. Or I
Quinn,
think
yeah.
and yeah, and I think I remember like at the time thinking, why isn't this show about her sister? Because like
Right.
I feel like there were like so many shows where the main lead is very like cutesy and
Uh-huh.
like uh if you ever watch the animated show Clifford the Big Red Dog, which there's gonna be
Mm,
a live action movie coming out soon because that's what we do in today's age. We
yeah.
reboot animation and books in film form, and the films are usually really good. But the Emily Elizabeth character, voiced by the terrific Grey Delisle, who I actually got a chance to meet, who's really very nice in real life too. um,
Nice.
and she's really cool, and she's very talented. Very, very, very talented. But the Emily Elizabeth character is very kind of sociable and outgoing and congenial and very poised and very kind of uh, uh, very 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 bubbly
Mm-hmm.
where Daria in contrast is very reserved, very kind of like you said, sarcastic. Like the show's sense of humor is a very specific brand of sarcasm. For everyone watching who hasn't seen Daria, if you're if you're like a Larry David fan or a Louis C.K. fan, like if you like Curb Your Enthusiasm or Louis, you might like Daria. Okay.
I feel like it's definitely like anti-hero, like in
Mm,
terms of the
yeah.
setup. I
Yeah.
mean, it did come out of like Beavis and Butthead and like King of the Hill, and like I feel one of the things is actually Daria was the show for, I can speak for myself having been there, for like the unpopular girls, right? Like so you see all these shows, and like Clueless was also this like play on teen tropes, right? Like that
Yeah.
kind of like spun it on its head and like made it a satire. And so
Yeah.
Daria was like a satire in the other way. So when you're like a 13-year-old mall goth like I was or whatever, like, or like a wannabe punk, like that's what like Daria was like the show for you, as opposed to something like, I can't remember the exact timeline, but this is also the era of like girl power, and so like the Spice Girls were like one end of like the girl power spectrum, and then Daria was like this other end where it's like,
Yeah.
you don't have to be like bubbly and fun, you can also be like kind of crappy and mean. And there's lots of different ways to be a teenage girl, like, so, but I
Yeah.
definitely think like it was reflective of a generation and influential to to people who watched it who were younger, because it just gave another viewpoint,
Yeah.
that where there wasn't a viewpoint for that kind of thing.
Yeah. And leave it to MTV to do something like that. So
Right.
and then it did find a mainstream audience. Like I feel like that it was popular.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm not sure if it had. I actually still think it holds up pretty well. I'm not sure if it's like streaming anywhere, or if you guys can like find it.
Think you get it on the MTV like app or whatever, but you also can buy the complete series on DVD. Which I received as a wedding present, and it was one of the best wedding presents I got. So 9 years ago, I got Daria the complete box set on DVD. And even though I don't have a DVD player, I will again one day, so I can watch it. And so I can watch some of my other weird out of print movies that like are hard to find on streaming.
Yeah. Let's see. Mm, um.
I know we got off topic. Do you want to talk about your one of your picks for Smashing Pumpkins songs?
Sure. Yeah. Let's see. I'm not sure what album it's off of, but so my number 3 would be the song Zero.
That was also on my short list.
It's really good. Just like a really good opening riff and a very good bass line that kind of like runs through the song just like beautifully. Like it's like I feel like it's a very listenable song and it's very easily accessible. And the vocals aren't too overpowering. Like I feel like the guitar is like what really kind of like runs through kind of the heart and soul of the song. I feel like the guitar part is really kind of what really kind of sustains and kind of drives the song, and I really like that because like a lot of the Smashing Pumpkins songs are very vocally driven. Um, like, mm, um, they all, of course, they always have great instrumental stuff. Like, obviously, James Yaw, very talented. Jimmy Chamberlain, very talented drummer. Uh,
Darcy, the bassist, or not the bassist, the
yeah,
guitarist. Was she the bassist or guitarist?
I think she's bassist because I think James Yaw was guitar, right?
Probably.
Okay. Yeah, I think Darcy was the bassist. I think James Yaw is back with the band. Yeah, I saw Smashing Pumpkins 2 years ago, and
Nice.
he was with the band. And he was great. And Billy Corgan really let him kind of steer the live show, and he was like super charismatic and everything, and it was really cool. And they had someone touring. I think she was from Australia. I'm not sure, but she was playing piano for them on the tour, and she might still be with the band, but she was good too. So uh, they put together a very interesting lineup, and they still sound great. And a
Nice.
really cool live show. And they played Zero, and Zero was the most memorable song for me from the live show. So I think Zero has really held up very well. And like stood the test of time.
Because it kind of uses like, I think it uses the harmonics in like that riff. But the one thing, because it has like that memorable like tone that's like hard to like pinpoint, but like impossible to forget.
Yeah.
But I also really like I guess you could say, I don't know the right word for it, but like the pre-chorus. It's not the bridge. It's like the where they cut the music out and it goes like, loneliness is cleanliness and cleanliness is godliness and
Yeah.
God is empty, just like, and then it goes, May, right? Like it just like comes in. It like, so it's funny because like I definitely agree with you. Like the musicianship, the guitar riffs on that is like super memorable and like can stand out on its own, but also that moment of like pulling the tension into one place and then just like blasting out into the chorus is like,
Yeah.
it's great. It was like, it's like a super fun song to get pumped up to, or if you need something to put on a playlist if you like to run, that's a song that like I would put on
Yeah.
an exercise playlist
Yeah.
because it just gets you hyped.
um yeah, I totally agree. I feel like it's a very good mood music and kind of can get you into stuff, and it's just so accessible too. So
Mm-hmm.
it's something I really like about it. Uh the first time I heard it, I'm gonna say that my sister probably played it for me, or we were listening to Y100, the local
Yep.
alternative Philly radio station. It was probably on there, but where I remember first hearing it was the Simpsons episode Homer Palooza, which is like a spoof of Lala, which they call Hullapalooza, which
Yep.
is Lollapalooza. And Smashing Pumpkins is in the episode, and they chose Zero.
Yeah.
And yeah, I watched the audio commentary, and they had a specific reason why they chose Zero. I can't remember what the reason was, but I think it was a good choice. Because I know that 1979 was very popular, but they went with Zero, and
Yeah.
I think that was a good pick. So and like the animation they chose like synced really well, and they kind of really captured kind of the crowd well too, and like it definitely kind of has a Woodstock kind of jam type vibe to it, how they painted that picture.
Yeah.
Uh no, so yeah, because Smashing Pumpkins, they played the original wall. I'm not sure if it was the original Lolla, but I think it was the 94 one.
They definitely played. If they didn't play the original one, I would be surprised because um, Harry Farrell, uh, from the band Porno for Pyros, like, and Jane's Addiction, like, was the founder of that, and I feel like they would have been there.
Mm, mm. Yeah, like I always associate Lolla with Smashing Pumpkins. So
Yeah. Okay.
yeah, uh and part of it is the Simpsons episode, which was also my introduction to Lollapalooza, was the Simpsons episode. Yep,
Mhm.
Hollapalooza. So,
Yeah.
And that is a Simpsons episode that has aged very well and has really held up. And it's a very good snapshot into 90s music culture. Like, you want just a quick piece of 90s music culture, watch the Simpsons episode Homer Palooza, and you get an idea for like the MTV culture that kind of breathed through the 90s. And I say this because like people watching or listening could be younger or could be in like middle school or high school and have no recollection of the 90s because they weren't alive for the 90s. But if you want a quick introduction or kind of crash course, this would be a very good primer.
I pulled it up. It's season 7,
Okay.
episode 24.
Okay.
For anyone who wants to check it out.
You guys should.
Yeah, it's a great episode.
Absolutely. One of my faves. I love it. Okay, so my number 3 was Zero. What is your number 2? Oh, Alyssa.
It's the song 33 from Melancholy. And again, this is like one where the iconic line from it is tomorrow's just an excuse away.
Okay.
But it has like this piano in it that's really beautiful, and it reminds me a little bit of like some Ben Folds, like not the peppy Ben Folds, but the sad like Brick. It like reminds me of Brick. But we were talking, I know at one point, you and I, and like the song Disarm from the earlier album is like a version of 33 feels like the companion to that. So if you've never heard the song 33 or you don't remember it, because I forgot what it was called. My husband had to like, I was like, what songs do you like from Smashing Pumpkins? And he mentioned it. I was like, oh yeah, that song. Disarm and 33, I feel like can go back to back and be like a great like musical moment. So that's my recommendation.
I personally had never heard 33 before, or I'd listened to it and I'd forgotten about it. But that album, like the Melancholy album, I highly recommend everyone listen to that all the way through. And 33, yeah, I just listened to it today, or just before we got started with the podcast. I quickly listened to it, and it's very soothing, it's very meditative, there's very good piano notes in it. I really like how Smashing Pumpkins integrates piano or in keys and kind of orchestral stuff. You see a lot of that in Tonight Tonight, which like Tonight, really, really strong song. Really strong song. But no, like I feel like 33 is a good exuberant song, but it's also kind of quiet and peaceful. There's like a good kind of peace to it that there's some Smashing Pumpkins songs that hit a little bit harder, like definitely in what was my number 3 in Zero, it hits a little bit harder. So okay.
Yeah, for sure. What song would be your number 2?
So let's see what you were talking about with Disarm. I feel like my number 2, which is Mayonnaise. I feel like that would be a really good song to listen to with Disarm. I'm not sure if they're off the same album. I actually can't even, let's see. Um, Mayonnaise, I think, is either off Siamese Dream or Melancholy. I think it's on Melancholy. I'll fact check that real quick.
I think it's on Siamese Dream. I just looked it up. But it definitely like, is in that era where it's like kind of like they kind of run together over time because they just
Okay.
complement each other, the two albums.
Okay. And Siamese Dream was first. That was before Melancholy, right?
Yeah, that was their like breakout album.
Okay. That's cool. Yeah, you're right. Uh yeah. If I had to pick a favorite Smashing Pumpkins album, it would be Adore, but Siamese Dream would probably be number two. Uh it's a really good album. Soma is a really good song. Space Boy is awesome. I love that that's after Mayonnaise.
Mm-hmm.
It's awesome. And you have Disarm, which is on there, and Hummer is a very good song too.
Yeah.
I know probably not everyone has listened to Hummer. Check it out. It's really good. Uh, yeah. But Mayonnaise, I'd say, is like a perfectly constructed song because it's so multifaceted and it kind of takes you through like a whole journey of kind of a song and has very different parts. Like it's just a trip. Like
Yeah.
um uh uh um like I'm not sure if it's like intended for you to be somewhat high or under the influence. Uh Probably helps, but okay.
I feel like Siamese Dream, like not to just like it's funny because the way the albums are named, they really do have this reflection. Like anything from that album does feel a bit dreamy and
Mm,
like a little bit like altered states. You know what I mean? Whereas like
yeah,
we're, you know, like Melancholy, everything just kind of feels like melancholy in some
yeah,
ways, right? Like
yeah.
not so much a strong feeling one way or the other, with the exception of maybe like Zero and my number one pick. So yeah, I definitely feel like it, even if it's not intended or like benefits from you being in an altered state, it does like create that atmosphere.
Mm, yeah, I get that too. I get that a lot. And honestly, like I listen to it and I get in like a really good mood. Like I get a very like thoughtful mood. Like it's very kind of therapeutic for me, and I find it really calming.
Yeah.
And just a really good really good kind of song before Space Boy, which is next on
Mm-hmm.
the album. Like I feel like that was excellent. Like I'm not sure who produced the album or who chose the order, but I feel like that was a great order because like you get it right before Space Boy. It transitions very nicely. Both are very
Yeah.
kind of thoughtful and dreamy type songs that you can kind of like just get lost in. So uh maybe that's why it's called Siamese Dream. Maybe that's what they're
Yeah.
going. Um I'm not sure because like I feel like Billy Corgan is a music genius and I feel like you really have to ask him, but I'm sure the answer changes depending on the day. So
And if anyone listening, like out there, just knows of an interview or something where he's talked about this, let us know.
yeah.
I'd be curious to see. We've done no research about his thought process into naming the album. We could always be surprised though. So
Yeah. No. Yeah. I feel like he's a really thoughtful guy. So uh I feel like there's definitely a definitive reason for it. So yeah, yeah. Uh yeah, if you guys are watching this on YouTube, if you want to leave something in the YouTube comments, that would be greatly appreciated. Okay, okay.
Yeah, for sure. Uh, Billy Corgan is a fascinating character, but I definitely acknowledge his musical genius. I did look up like all the Billy Corgan controversies because I was like, and thank goodness, like none of them are. They're not. Some of them are not great, but you're just like, no, okay, this is just like a person being just a person and who they are, and not like where you look back on some like people and you're just like, yikes, like.
Mm.
So I appreciate that he's kind of like kept himself together for the most part, even if he is kind of like, man, like he is a person who has a lot of money, and so it's just funny the things that he gets himself into. And not a lot of compassion, but is a musical genius. So
Yeah. Let's see. I feel like you probably have more Corgan knowledge than I do. Has I feel like he's had to do projects outside of Smashing Pumpkins. Like he's had more projects, right?
yeah, he's like a producer on a bunch of albums. Like I know that he produced Hole's album Celebrity Skin for most of the songs and co-wrote some of them. I'm gonna look him up right now. Billy Corgan. Billy Corgan. I always do that with producer of albums or albums produced. So he also produced for a band called Kaleidoscope,
Oh,
I
I've
guess.
not heard of them.
I don't know either, or at least some songs. Um, and then yeah, he's definitely like collaborated as a songwriter on a bunch of things.
Mm.
Oh yeah, I forgot he was also in Zwan.
Hmm?
Do you know what his other band called Zwan, ZWAN? That was another. I forgot about that
Oh,
band.
yeah, I think I heard about them.
He also was, he did some work in professional wrestling as a commentator and things like that. So
Hmm.
yeah, where is collaborations here?
Yeah, I'm looking at Wikipedia. It says Tear Garden by Kaleidoscope.
Yeah, he worked as a consultant to Marilyn Manson.
Oh.
For one of the albums, he collaborated with a bunch of other bands. So I mean, he's definitely done a bunch of things. Yeah, he's a dude. He's duding around.
That's cool. Yeah. I feel like I could go down a Corgan rabbit hole and be pretty pleased with the musical adventures and the or whimsy that would happen.
So
So
influential for sure.
oh yeah, oof, yeah, huge, huge. Yeah. If I'm picking favorite bands, I'd say Silver Sun Pickups is like high up on my list. Like probably like one of my top three all-time favorite bands. The first time I heard Lazy Eye on the radio, I thought it was a Smashing Pumpkins song. I thought, okay,
Nice.
that's Billy Corgan singing, right? I was like, that's Smashing Pumpkins. So they definitely influenced Silver Sun Pickups.
Sure.
I know that Silver Sun Pickups. I know. Let's see. I can't remember the name of the album, but there's one album where the lead singer Brian O'Bear, he gave a interview and he said that New Order was one of the big influences on them. And if you listen to modern indie music, it's all New Order. Like it's all New Order or Joy Division. Like all of it's like dripping with just like notes of like New Order and Joy Division or uh or Depeche Mode.
Yeah.
Usually one of those three. You just hear the influence on all of them. Uh,
I feel like that's generational though, because in the Wikipedia space for Billy Corgan, he talks about one of his famous quotes is how influential Black Sabbath was to him.
ooh.
And I feel like a lot of musicians who were like, really gained fame like in the 90s, had definitely been influenced by like Black Sabbath and probably also like MC5 and some other bands, but like then it makes sense like generationally, like a little later came, the fandom and the influence of like definitely Joy Division and New Order.
Yeah.
And then it'll be interesting to see like, I mean, the 90s are back for Gen Z and Zoomers and stuff like that. So I feel like the 90s, it'll be interesting to see like who comes out of that. Nirvana is, largely cited, and you can buy a Nirvana t-shirt at Target. So like, you know what I mean? Like I feel like there's going to be those kinds of influences of that next wave, and it'll be interesting to see how that like plays out.
Yeah. Yeah. Kind of going off of that, I feel like Nirvana was kind of revitalized recently by the movie Black Widow. I'm not sure if you saw Black Widow.
I haven't seen it yet.
I think the opening credits, there's a very good cover rendition of Smells Like Teen Spirit with female vocals, which is a great way to reimagine truly an iconic song. And like, this whole episode, you and I have been talking about like MTV and MTV roots and kind of big 90s type music, and like Smashing Pumpkins, like very epitome of like grunge and 90s popular rock music.
Yeah.
And Nirvana, probably only one of the few bands that was more popular. And Black Widow is definitely bringing some of it back, because it's interesting because with the version of Smells Like Teen Spirit, that's something that you'd only see in a trailer. Like that's something you would previously see in the trailer, because it's designed to get people hyped. So for Marvel to be bold enough, or for the studio
Disney Marvel.
Yeah, there you go. For the studio to be bold enough to do that, it's a great way to get people hyped and like locked into their seats, because it's either something that would be played at the end of a movie or in the trailer. It's not something that would be opening credits, but it definitely gets back to kind of the movie Superman, like the original Superman, and like the iconic John Williams theme. Like, so having an iconic theme to open a movie, even though it's technically not a music theme, but having an iconic song to open a movie is really kind of throwback to great film scores or great songs to accompany or complement a superhero movie. So that's kind of throwback, and
Yeah.
I like it, and I like that kids will hopefully know who Nirvana is because they watched Black Widow. Okay.
Yeah, or because their parents are like, back in my day, let me tell you about Nirvana.
Yeah.
One of the tragedies, but one of the things that makes Nirvana so timeless is that it was a band that hit its height, and then, because of Kurt Cobain's death and how it was timed, like, it is forever like encapsulated. Do you know what I mean? Like, it can't be that much different. Like, and that is one of the things, like, right, like, you can't there's just less time for the music to evolve, or for him, for Kurt Cobain to do something that, like, gets him canceled, like, because he was out before then, and I think there's a lot that, like, for the timing and things like that, plays into, like, why Nirvana will also be, like, so iconic, and not the famous phrase that's attributed, to the Kurt Cobain death is, it's better to burn out than fade away. That is the encapsulation of the popularity there. So. Can we talk about my number one pick?
Absolutely.
While we're talking about Nirvana?
Absolutely.
It's Bullet with Butterfly Wings, because that song was definitely, like, I think that, aside from Tonight, that was another, like, big hit off of Melancholy. And that one was, like, Tonight was, like, beautiful and artful, but Bullet with Butterfly Wings, like, definitely has that teenage angst, like, rage. And I was just like, oh, this is for me. Like,
yeah.
So I have a very soft, sentimental place in my heart for it.
What album is it from?
It's from Melancholy.
Yeah. Again, I'll have to give Melancholy another listen. I'll probably listen to Siamese Dream again first, but
sure. It's the one that starts out with, like, the world is a vampire. The world is a vampire. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, we're talking about Zero being, like, in vampire movies. I mean, this is the one that would be, like, a little too, like, on the nose. But Bullet with Butterfly Wings, like, just a bop. So good.
Yeah. I remember when my sister and I went to see Smashing Pumpkins 2 years ago. I think she posted on her Insta something about the Cage lyric in Bullet with Butterfly Wings. I think Bullet with Butterfly Wings was her favorite Smashing Pumpkins song, or the song that, like, stuck out to her the most. So
the line, despite all my rage, I'm still just a rat in a cage.
Yup. I think she posted.
Despite all my rage, I'm still just a rat in a cage. It's so good. It's such a. Now I'm just gonna think about that song after we get done this podcast. I'm going to have to listen to it because it's so good.
Yeah. So, for everyone watching and listening, Bullet with Butterfly Wings, it is kind of one of the more. It is kind of like one of the bops, kind of more kind of in your face, down your throat, kind of
rock jam. It's
the
rock,
big, just big or bombastic. It's like yeah, it's like if you want, like, the anthem, if you want a 90s anthem, Bullet Butterfly Wings, maybe Zero. So like, you get one of those. If you want something more meditative and kind of a little bit calmer, I'd say 33, which was one of Alyssa's, and probably Tonight too. Like, but I guess it depends on your interpretation of what calm is. I find orchestral music extremely calming and soothing. But like the chorus to Tonight Tonight hits really hard, but the rest of it is kind of soothing and tranquil.
Yeah, for sure. Drew,
Um,
tell us your number one pick
oh,
for Smashing Pumpkins.
okay. Really quick before that, would Tonight Tonight, would that make your top 5? Because I know you said you really wanted Today to be in
It would
your.
be like my 6th favorite song.
Okay.
Oh no, with 0, no, it'd be my 7th actually.
Mm,
Yeah. So
gotcha.
it'd be top 10, but not top 6. But like from a music video standpoint, it would also be top 7. It's one that's like really good and like in the top, deserving of being in the top 10
Mm,
for different reasons.
mm,
But not like cracking that top 5.
mm. Um, yeah, I got you. Let's see. Uh, oh, all right. Um, let's see. Definitely gonna watch the Tonight Tonight video. Does her bullet with butterfly wings, does that have a music video as well?
It does.
Okay.
Um, but what does it look like? I can't remember. Hold on. Oh yeah, it does have one.
Oh, cool,
Yeah,
man.
he's wearing his like iconic 0 shirt. So
Mm,
yeah, it has one.
very cool. Um, yeah, man. Let's see. Okay, so my number one off the album Adore, which I'm really feeling right now, but depending on uh yeah, I think Adore will probably always be my favorite Smashing Pumpkins album. It was Siamese Dream for a long time, but then I kind of discovered Adore and really enjoyed it. Uh, 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 um, uh, her, uh, her pug from Adore is my favorite Smashing Pumpkins song, which unfortunately they no longer play live.
Yeah.
And I think they only played it live on like the tour of that album, and then after that they kind of just kind of
Stuck
decided,
with the hits.
yeah, the hits or the songs from the current albums,
Yeah, that's
which
typical, I feel like.
I guess Pug was kind of one that kind of just got lost in kind of the vibe of that album, even though like it's really good. Like, and I find it very visceral and very like mayonnaise. I feel like it's also a trip. So,
Yeah.
um, um, like, uh, you know, you can kind of take a journey with like some of these songs, and it has very good synth in it, and the
Yeah.
synth, the synth in Pug is like something I really like about it. So, if everyone listening, if you're a fan of synth, listen to Pug and listen to Adore, because Adore is a very different album than like all their other albums. So
Yeah.
uh like they were going for a very different kind of sound, and they accomplished it. Yeah. So if you're watching or listening to this and you've never heard a Smashing Pumpkins song before, I would recommend Siamese Dream as kind of mm, um the way to get into it, to get into like the really good stuff. um Okay. Okay.
Yeah, because Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness is a double album, so it's long, and so it's a
Mm,
longer experience too. So I agree, Siamese Dream is a great way to start. I feel actually, it's funny I say this now. I feel like Siamese Dream is to like what Green Day's album Dookie or like Weezer's Blue album was, right? Where it's like it's the starting point, it's the one that like kicks everything off, and then everything you listen to that came afterwards feels like you can kind of like understand where it comes from there, right? Like that's the
yeah.
context. Like this is where they started. Like this is
Yeah.
the whole picture, and then you can see the evolution and appreciate it after there.
Yeah. Um. Yeah. Um. Was Siamese Dream their first album?
Let me find out.
Okay.
I'm sure it wasn't their first like recording.
Hmm.
I'm sure they had like an EP or something.
Hmm.
Because like also remember like in that time the music industry was really different, so you had to like get oh yeah, I forgot about the album Gish. Yeah, not at all their first album. Uh
Hmm.
yeah, Gish was a good album. Um so yeah, it definitely was one where they probably like started hitting their stride, and then it also probably finally had some money like behind them to like do a studio album in the way that you had to do it in the 90s.
Yeah.
Which was like to do the whole like process, like not like you can now where you can just like record stuff in your house or get GarageBand. I also forgot like Pisces Iscariot was a good album. Iscariot, I never can say that. Um yeah,
Hmm.
I forgot about that one too.
Hmm. Yeah.
Cause,
Um.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
because they had that box set. Like they had this like uh what was the airplane? Yeah, it was like they had this like box set in 1996. So like a year after Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness, that was like a cute like it looked like a 7-inch like carrier or like a lunchbox, like a classic lunchbox. And I remember like it was a big deal, if you were like cool and rich enough to get the box set, and then girls my age would use it as a lunchbox or like a purse. That was a thing. So
Oh, cool, man.
yeah.
Cool. Um. Um. Uh. Also, I'm not sure if anyone listening or watching still has CDs, but I'm linking Rotten Apples on Wikipedia. I'm sure you can find it on Spotify, but it's a greatest hits album for Smashing Pumpkins. So and it's pretty good. So also, even though the 90s purist in me and Alyssa would say to start with listening to a whole album Mr. um okay.
I think one of the
uh,
things is like there's no like again too like this was back to the time where like an album was an experience where you're intended to listen to it straight through, and so
yeah,
to
yeah.
go on that like emotional journey, like yeah, like not every song is a single or a banger, but like going back to Billy Corgan's like really like artistic vision, I feel like you get more out of the whole album. Because like Melancholy with the songs, like I never really skipped the songs to like the ones I just wanted to listen to.
Mhm.
It always felt like you had to listen to at least like one whole CD of it, even if you couldn't listen to both.
Mm, yeah. um no, and I think that's a testament to how good Smashing Pumpkins is, and they are more than just the hits.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's really good music. So
Yeah.
and they still have a really big fan base. They're still wildly popular. So or I'm not sure which age bracket, but they do have like a pretty big audience still. So uh yeah, definitely check out Smashing Pumpkins, guys. Okay. um
Yeah.
yeah. Um okay. Um so any closing remarks on Smashing Pumpkins?
There's a picture of Billy Corgan just minding his own business with his family in Disney World on, I think it's Splash Mountain, and he just looks like the most unhappiest dad on Splash Mountain that you've ever seen. And I think about that picture like once every 3 months. If I could have like a scrapbook of the internet, like that picture would be one of the things that I think about.
Oh man. That's cool. And yeah, seeing people like I feel like seeing pictures of like celebrities at like theme parks and like Disney World and stuff is always like so interesting because like it's like their private lives in public. So okay.
Yeah,
um
completely. And like, yeah, you're a public figure, but also like it's a picture of one moment that's just like your bad moment. I
yeah.
just sent you the picture in the
Oh
chat.
yeah. Oh yeah.
Um, yeah, a link to like an article, but like at the same
Okay.
time, it's just like it's just such a funny, weird artifact. And for whatever reason, because like I don't know, it's very leveling. I feel like where you're just kind of like, oh yeah, we're all just people at the end of the day.
Yeah. Um
I mean, he also can. I don't know if he looks like he's being having his picture taken, but like it's just very funny. It's a very good picture. I just appreciate it so much.
oh man. Yeah.
All of your heroes have flaws. I think that's what it comes down to.
Yeah. um yeah.
He's
um
riding like first car behind the train, which is very funny.
uh, uh, um um yeah. Ooh, um yeah. Also everyone goes to everyone or everyone goes to Disneyland or Disney World. So yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm excited to talk about our movies
Let's
because
yeah. Let's get into the
I
movie.
have things to say. This was an emotional roller coaster. Like I was on Splash Mountain and I looked like Billy Corgan because I was definitely feeling like Drew, like why am I watching these movies? I didn't intend to have these emotional like it almost activated my depression, which was a fine. That's just what happens. I think I had told you like separately because we had watched the Linklater movies also and we talked before this, like I get really emotionally connected and manipulated by like films and music when they like hit in a certain way. So that's why I like don't always watch like a ton of movies or things like that. I gotta like manage my energy. I don't know which one you want to talk about first, but I watched these two movies back to back and it was a roller coaster of emotion. So if you're watching this episode and you are like, oh, I'm going to watch these movies, give yourself like a breather in between the two of them. Do not watch them back to back.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I totally agree. Like both of them, like, just like you might cry a little bit, you might whelp with tears, you
You
might
might
be
watch Homer Palooza in the middle, that episode by The Simpsons, so you can have
cheer
a
yourself
palate
up,
cleanser.
cheer
Yeah.
yourself up, man.
Yeah.
You absolutely something to break apart just the um drama.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good way to describe both movies. Let's see. Um, well, I have a fair amount to say about Rachel getting married. I don't have a lot to say about Blue Valentine. So,
Should we just knock that one out then first?
yep. We could just talk about Blue Valentine fairly quickly.
What do you have to say about it? I'm interested in hearing your thoughts.
Hmm, um, let's see. So Alyssa and I did talk about this before the pod that um we both found it very interesting how it's a very good showcase in in method acting because Michelle Williams and Ryan Gosling did live together, and you said they lived together with the child as well too.
Yeah, so there's a really great article. It's actually an interview on Fresh Air with Ryan Gosling from this time, because I remember hearing it right before I saw Blue Valentine in theaters, and it was like so fascinating to me. So the director Derek Cianfrance, he there's a couple interesting like pieces of trivia about this movie that's definitely worth seeing the Wikipedia page, but he wanted the experience like in the movie. um the characters of Michelle Williams's characters and Ryan Gosling's character, they fall in love. And so a lot of that was filmed where that was like right at the beginning. And so a lot of it was like improvised. Like the process for that was super interesting to just like see them getting to know each other in that process. And then for the parts of the movie that are taken where it's like years later, they have this kid, they have this unhappy marriage, they actually spent a whole month living in the same house. They didn't only live there during the day because Michelle Williams had a child she wanted to be with, but they just would spend the whole day like in this house together. The director even had them like they put a Christmas tree up. They like did these types of things to make like family memories, so they had a way to like access like memories of this long-term relationship in the challenging, difficult scenes. um Emotional manipulation, man. But it was just really interesting because they would spend all day like at this house together as part of the process, and they'd film a little bit, but it was really more about like just kind of being there and like creating this like world and this familiarity or like these inside jokes, like with the child who played the daughter. Like there was this level of like connection because they got to spend time like pretending to be a family.
Yeah. Um. um. Let's see. Yeah. I got that too. And that's something that really kind of that was probably my favorite quality of the movie was it's so authentic, like the authenticity of the performances and the chemistry between Michelle Williams and Ryan Gosling. Like you do believe that they were in a relationship and that they fell in love and they fell out of love, and the movie is kind of about that emotional kind of turbulent relationship and kind of the falling in and out of love, or the relationship just gets stale. So it is kind of about that, and part of it is he's always kind of like between jobs, or the jobs he does aren't blue collar, where she has a better job. She works as a think she's a nurse, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So yeah, she definitely makes more money than he does. um uh which I think does get to his ego a little bit. I'm not sure if they get into that in the movie, but yeah, he's like, yeah, like the flashbacks in the movie are so refreshing because they're fun, and it's like when the relationship was really kind of like novel and new and enjoyable and kind of um bright, where it definitely got dark later and just not fun anymore. And uh just like the way the movie starts, you can tell the relationship's already fractured, and you can tell it's already like really, really just dysfunctional. Which, yeah, it feels like it could be a very, I think it is based on a true story. I think so. I think it is like written from a very real place. So if you're watching or listening and you want an independent movie to watch that feels like real life, it's a good one. Yeah.
I have a couple things to say on top of that too. I know we're not going to talk about it in depth, but a few things. When this movie came out, it had an NC-17 rating, which is like purely based on sexism, honestly. And that was even a thing that Ryan Gosling talks about, where it's like there's a moment where they're having an intimate moment that like if the roles were reversed, it would just get an R rating, but because of like the roles being reversed, it was like deemed NC-17, which was also like, ooh, let's see this movie that's NC-17. Like very few movies were getting that rating at that time.
Okay.
The other thing that I found, like when I watched this, like there's two minds that I have about this movie. The acting and the direction and the filmmaking part are like beautiful, awesome, interesting, like challenging. But man, when I watch it like as a critical, like 37-year-old person now, I'm just like, this is an advertisement for therapy and couples counseling. This is an example of like two people who like didn't have a lot of time to like emotionally deal with their baggage personally or even develop because they rushed into something young, because without giving too many spoilers away, like some of the things you learn, especially on the rewatch, it made more sense, or it gave like more light to her character, where she's a person who's like, not making a statement for or against, but she's had many partners that she sort of feels ambivalent about in a short amount of time, because she seemed relatively young in the movie. It seems like she's taking college courses. It's even unclear if she was maybe in high school, but it does seem like she's college aged. And then it's also kind of like, so they have this quick romance. They have this like thing that comes up that's not a result of Michelle Williams and Ryan Gosling's like relationship, but she becomes a person in crisis, and he's like, I'm making the decision in our short time together to be there for you. And for us to like make this lifelong commitment, which even his character says in the movie, he's like, I never want to be like somebody's husband or like in this situation, but then like he feels differently because of her. And so he's a person who wasn't even like mentally or emotionally prepared, probably didn't have other long-term relationships to like learn how to communicate, learn how to have boundaries, learn how to fight in ways that are like productive and maintain a relationship, as opposed to like a lot of the stuff he did where he like, she's like, you just flip things on me, like he did in many of the situations, and you're just like, Jesus, like all y'all need to like communicate differently. And she seems like a person who's like pulled inside of herself because of probably her father's dynamic and like his rage. And there's all these like other levels where I'm just like, all of y'all need therapy. You need to unpack this. Like this isn't that, it doesn't have to be this way. So that was a thing that was like frustrating on the other side to watch now, because man, as much as like that was painful, where I was like, I feel like this should just be differently if you could communicate better. The one gripe I have about this movie is they made Ryan Gosling look like trash in the older scenes, because that girl, like even that girl, she couldn't be more than 10. She's definitely like 7 in that movie.
Okay.
If you're to believe like they're singing Yankee Doodle Dandy
Okay.
in the like song thing, you're just like, this girl is 7 years old. let's say, let's give the benefit of the doubt and be like, okay, Michelle Williams' character is like in college, but maybe she's older, maybe she's like 22 plus 7 years, like she's 29, right? Let's say Ryan Gosling's character was 30 in that film, and now you want me to believe this man is 39 years old or 37 years old or whatever he is, and you're just like, and you went from being hunky Ryan Gosling to this version of the character Dean that is so balding and weird in such a short amount of years. You're just like, how did this happen? Like, do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I felt like they played him too old, and I think that was the most hard to believe part for me, where I was just like, it's only been 7 years. Why does he look like this? Just saying. I think that's the real crime of this movie.
That's a very interesting take on that. So if you want to see Ryan Gosling play a kind of a down and out role, kind of an alternative from his usual handsome and suave self, where you see him handsome and suave in Crazy Stupid Love. I'm not sure if you've seen that movie.
That movie came up after this one. Crazy Stupid Love was like, okay, so this was the last movie that I remember from Ryan Gosling where he was the kind of hot Ryan Gosling that I liked. And Crazy Stupid Love, I was like, all right, Muscles, I get it. Like, we're going different ways. We're growing apart. That's fine. You're no longer the Ryan Gosling that I have loved since Young Hercules. I get it. Like, and that's fine. But that was a great movie. I thought that movie was very fun. Crazy Stupid Love.
Oh yeah, it's hilarious. Yep. Steve Carell, Marissa Tomei. Has a really good cast. Really good cast. Very sharp writing. Very witty. Very well shot. Very well edited. A very well.
Julianne Moore was great in it. Emma Stone was so fun. Yeah.
I love Julianne Moore so much. Yeah, that's good stuff.
I didn't mean to take over the conversation about Blue Valentine, but I had a lot of things to say because this used to be one of my movies where I was like, oh, this like heartbreakingly challenging love story. And then on this rewatch, I was just like, I don't know if I like this movie anymore. They just need therapy. Like, what is the problem? Like, this is just dysfunction. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I totally agree. Like, I think it's pretty fixable. Like, I think this is a fixable relationship from what they kind of gripe and argue about. I think that's fixable. I think the fundamental issue is the jobs and professions that I feel like she
interesting.
More money than he does, and he works as a mover. He paints houses. She doesn't like that. He drinks beer for breakfast, I think, or drinks beer in the morning. He's like, I have the type of job I can drink beer in the morning.
Yeah. Huh. I wouldn't have thought I could see her being unhappy with like that she stayed kind of in the same place. But I wouldn't have thought it was because of like his job. Like, I could see her feeling like she wanted to have more ambition and like felt like she kept herself stuck. But that's interesting. I wouldn't have thought about that viewpoint about it being related to like their job status. But
No, I think you're right, Alyssa. I think there's like multiple reasons, but I do agree. Like, they just need therapy and they just need to get over, certain things and, and rekindle the joy and the passion that was there in the flashbacks. Because in the flashbacks in the movie, when they first got together, it's very, romantic and cinematic and magical and, uh but
Yeah. Yeah, it is advocacy for self-help and like watching like a personal development YouTube channel, in my opinion. So speaking of self-help, do you want to talk about Rachel getting married? Because
oh yeah.
this was the roller coaster. Like Blue Valentine, I was like annoyed at. Rachel getting married was the roller coaster for me, where I was just like, Christ.
Yeah. So I love Rachel getting married so much because first, I think it is the best movie about a wedding that actually has a wedding in the movie. And the whole movie is basically about a wedding, but it's about like the whole process of a wedding. Like, you get the rehearsal dinner, you get the people staying at her house, staying at the main character Kim's house, because the main character, you could say it's an ensemble piece for the film, but Rachel is not the main character. The main character is Kim.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess it's called Rachel Getting Married because it's supposed to be about Rachel, but Kim like takes like like it's Rachel's story, but no, it's Kim's story because it all has to be about Kim, because
Yeah.
because Kim is a real narcissist, just like completely, but also very redeemable in the way that she realizes it, and she realizes that she can't really help herself, and there is a warmth that I think Anne Hathaway brings to it that I really like, and that I find very compelling. Because like, although like Kim is like really self-destructive, just like completely, and I agree that like emotional roller coaster, because you just like look at Kim and you just like start crying, because like, you know, this girl, his life is just in pieces, just like all over the screen, like pretty much for the whole movie. um uh but there is something very kind of something very likable about Kim, or something very like you feel like she's a very honest person, and you feel like she's a good person, and she has good moral fiber, and she has good emotional reads, and that she like really kind of cares deeply for people, because one of the big undercurrents of the movie is that she got her brother killed because she was driving, and she was driving under the influence, and he died.
When she was a teenager, which is super important to remember too.
Yeah.
She was
um
16 when it happened.
mm, um um yeah, so it's a very impressionable age. It's like your brain is still growing, it's still developing. You're maybe not emotionally mature enough to handle a thing like that, so like it could definitely do a number on you, and she never really recovered from that. So uh Kim is like constantly in crisis.
Yeah, and one question I had, right? Like, because like she's 16, she like has a substance abuse problem, right? Like, and then
Yeah.
this tragic thing happens. Like, does she spiral and have, because like you hear throughout the movie all these like hints at different stories or different moments of chaos, Kim is called, like incredible levels, like setting beds on fire and different things like that.
Yeah.
Where it's like, you know, was it exacerbated? You know, was she always going to be on this path, or was it deeply exacerbated because she couldn't handle the pain of, you know, being responsible for her brother's death? You know what I mean?
um Uh, mm, yeah. Maybe it helped the substance abuse a little bit, but it definitely didn't help her emotionally. Like it definitely hurt her emotionally, and I feel like she never really recovered from that. So, um,
Yeah, I guess I'm more saying like, I guess because like if you make some assumptions, right? She's 16, she's under the influence, she kills her brother, or she's responsible for her brother's death,
mm,
and then she has to deal with that, right? And
mm,
she indicates she's been in and out of jail, and she's like borrowed money, stolen things, just done all these things over her time. You know, dealing with grief is so fraught, and then if you already have a substance abuse like problem, which is a public health, it's a disease, right? Like it's a an issue that's like addiction is a disease. So like you're trying to deal with like addiction, but you're also trying to deal with grief as well as like being responsible for causing such a pain to your family.
mm.
Like that's so much to deal with at once that like it's a you can only put your energy into any one thing, and she can't resolve any of them. So that kind of, I would imagine, led to the perpetuation or like some of the problem, like the reasons why she had not yet, after all these years, like fully been able to like go through a rehabilitation process and kick whatever her substance abuse habits were.
Yeah.
Because she's only allowed out for the weekend from her rehab facility for her sister's wedding.
Oh, I thought she was free to go.
So at the end, I don't know if you remember, at the end, the nurse picks her up, or
Yeah.
like the orderly or whatever. So
Okay.
she was only out for the weekend for like with permission to attend her sister's wedding.
Okay. Um, let's see. I know at the beginning the nurse says good luck to you. So I think Kim is free to go. Um, like and it, I I think her dad wants Kim to live at home. And he tries to get Kim a job. Like he sets her up with one of his friends, and he's like, "We're gonna get you a job in the office. Like, go do it." And then Kim doesn't, which she doesn't want to really live with her dad anymore because her dad still treats her kind of like a little girl. So she kind of wants to mature a little bit. I'm not sure what she wants to do, but um, she wants to get away from being like the little girl with her dad. Uh, to kind of talk about some of the acting and performances, the dad, I think, is just like really well cast. Like this guy, just like I think dad when I think about this actor, and he reminds me so much of my uncle. Like so much my uncle, and like his house is like also my uncle's house, and it reminded me of like one of my cousin's weddings too.
Yeah.
Like I feel like this could have been an actual wedding. This is my uncle. This is his house. This is an actual thing that happened, which is why I'm saying this is the best wedding movie ever, because this is a wedding that I've personally been to. So like
Yeah.
I feel like I've been to this wedding, and so it's like a real wedding movie, but it's also super compelling, and the music in the movie is so good. Like there's so many like live performances in the movie. Now, I'm sure they're obviously probably pre-recorded, they're probably dubbed because it's very hard to do live music on film. I know the movie Les Mis that also is Anne Hathaway and it did that. They actually
Yeah.
did record in real time, and the singing in the movie was actually done when they were filming and not in a separate recording, because a lot of times music in musical numbers in movies are recorded separately.
I can
So
tell you some trivia about this if you want some answers.
yes, Alyssa.
So I looked it up because I was also curious about the music. So they actually invited the person who was in charge of the score and things actually did invite a lot of musicians to come and just kind of noodle around. And they
Okay.
were actually just playing. Some of the takes I think they were filming without any music, but some of the times like the musicians are just screwing around and stuff like that. If you remember the one scene where they tell the musicians to stop, that actually was for real. Anne Hathaway was like, can you have them stop playing? And the director was like, use it, like you tell them to stop. And so the mother who played, or the stepmother, Carol, who went out, like wasn't even like, didn't know that this was like going to be part of this. She like went out there and they just played through it, which was really cool because like Blue Valentine, this movie also had improvised scenes. Like they knew what beats they needed to hit, but there was like moments of just like the guests and things like that. It was like a party that they threw, and there was a lot of authenticity. The one guy who's outside at the wedding as they're like preparing it and he's playing that like song, he was invited to specifically play that song, but they wanted it to feel like because in this movie, in this world, the groom is a musician, the family is like comes from a bunch of musicians, so the world has just like, oh, all these friends are musicians and they're just like bringing their talents and skills. So they did do the takes to record the music live, even though some of the cuts were put, you know, of course, the way they edit it, not all the scenes were taken from the same like musical moment. But I thought that was really cool because that was a really interesting like thing to see.
Yeah. 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 Just the music is so good in this movie. And yeah, just like the music throughout, and yeah, the song that the guy who plays at the wedding, I forget his last name. His first name is Robin, I think.
Yeah,
He plays the song
something America.
America, yeah, and uh the version they do in the movie, I think it's great because the version in the movie is very different from the studio and the recorded
Yeah.
version. But I really like the version that they do in the movie. I think that's definitely one of the highlights of the film. And I'm not sure if you're into the band TV on the Radio.
I know them. I've listened to them before. Not
Okay.
like super into them, but yeah.
Okay. The lead singer Tunde Tembe, he plays
Oh
the groom
yeah.
in the movie.
I
Yep.
couldn't figure out why he was familiar. Okay, that makes
Yeah,
sense.
he plays the Sydney character, and he also sings in a few of the scenes in the movie, which makes a lot of sense because in real life he is a lead singer.
Yeah.
So he does like sing in the movie, and it's great, and he's awesome. And there's a song at the rehearsal dinner when they first go to the rehearsal dinner that it's very kind of like tribal and rhythmic and very kind of vibey type song, and like I'm really curious if it's him singing that song or if it's someone else because it sounds like his voice, but also getting back uh to the 90s stuff, the song that's playing in the background in the rehearsal there reminds me of the band An- Enigma, which
Mm.
popular in the 90s. Yeah, so again, there's a way to connect this film to the 90s. But yeah, the music's really good. Tunde Tembe, he's excellent. I think it's really cool that like he hasn't done a ton of acting roles, but it's cool that they had him play um the groom or the husband to be. I thought that was like a very interesting choice. It's a very modern choice, very progressive, very modern, for a lot of reasons. Uh, so yeah, like this is just a really cool movie, and just like really fun, and like you get the whole process of the wedding. Like you get like the reception, the rehearsal dinner, the in between, like, and like the reception, like they go into depth in it. Like that's a long reception that you basically get to see all of it like in the movie.
Yeah.
Like I really like that this movie like goes for it, like in that like it really chooses to like show you the whole process of like what a wedding is. Because there aren't a lot of movies that like do that. Like maybe My Big Fat Greek Wedding is another good.
I love that movie. Father of the Bride, I would say also with
Yeah,
Steve Martin.
yeah, that's good too. I think they're trying to remake that one too. Which I think it already is a remake. um, but they could be going for a third one.
Grandfather of the Bride. Great grandfather of the bride. Can I just say one thing that's wild is I didn't realize, I just looked up this director because I knew the name, but I couldn't remember why. He directed Philadelphia. He
Mm,
directed The Manchurian Candidate. He
mm,
directed Silence of the Lambs.
love them,
Um,
love them so much.
yeah, and it's just really interesting because I did read somewhere when I was like doing a little research for our conversation that this was like his move back to independent style filmmaking, because
Mm,
he even like he used like a handheld camera to like evoke a
mm.
lot of like the chaos and like the point of view in a lot of the scenes, and I thought that was really interesting. And just the filmmaking process of it too was just like,
Yeah,
yeah, it was really good.
yeah. And I think he knows how to capture emotional strife just very well, and like drama, like because you really see it on the film. You really see that in between uh reels. So and in between cuts, in between scenes, like you see the emotions like pouring out of the actors, and actors have great chemistry and everything, and it's like really really good. And yeah, Rosemary DeWitt and Anne Hathaway are really great together. And but no, like Jonathan Demme, like just the way he I know the way he shot, like you're talking about those handheld shots. There's like very he does very cool things with the camera. Like the camera's placed in various places. I'm not sure who the cinematographer was, but it's a very European style film movie in that it's it's a linear story, but it's supposed to be somewhat passive, and things just kind of happen, and it
Yeah.
kind of films that. And you get that with the reception where it just kind of happens, and you just see the reception like, because honestly, if you were to see this on TV and just come in the second half, you'd be like, okay, I'm watching a wedding right now. Like, is this actually a real movie? Okay.
Yeah, I think one of the things too, so one of the major scenes that's like such a good example of like being a passenger almost literally and figuratively is when you're in the car with Anne Hathaway and she's
Mm,
like losing her mind.
mm.
Not losing her mind. She's like so distraught after a fight with her mother. One second, hold on. I have to, my AirPods just died.
That's totally cool, dude.
I think you can hear me now. Okay. One of the things is you see her and the camera keeps going back and forth because the camera operator is in the passenger seat and
Okay.
they're looking at like the fork in the road, and then they're in the same shot cutting back to Anne Hathaway, fork in the road, and you like are in like, so you see that moment and it just keeps going back and forth without the cuts, and that moment is just so like chaotic and powerful, and it really just does feel like you're tagging along with her, or you're a bystander at the party, which is like such an interesting perspective.
Yeah.
One of the other things that was like super interesting about this film was like I was annoyed the whole time with she's also like an anti-hero character where like she's not completely likable, she does cringy things, she's a person who's struggling, and so you have
Yeah.
compassion while also being frustrated.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I had told you this. I took a screenwriting workshop with Jenny Lumet, who wrote Rachel's Getting Married, and her whole thing was, she broke down the use of the hero's journey, which is like, Joseph Campbell's hero's journey. Like, it's definitely worth like seeing if you're somebody who's interested in storytelling and things like that. She did a bunch of exercise. It was super interesting. But then when I watched Rachel's Getting Married this time, I looked at the hero's journey like chart specifically and was like, oh, this is like the exact, like, if you look at the character of Kim going through the hero's journey, you're just like, wow, like it's so on the nose, like in a good way, but it's just like, it's why I think a lot of the film is successful. And then you're also seeing like the family tension that is created by the actors, the director, and the storyline. Super, super interesting.
Yeah. Um. um. Um.
I'm going to send you this particular breakdown of the hero's journey because some people do it in different ways. But this one has like, if you think of the 3 acts as like the departure, the initiation, the return, like it's just specifically the idea of the resurrection, the scene where her sister's like takes her back, is like helping her like clean up, like, you know what I mean? Like that is like the resurrection scene in the film.
Yeah. I totally get that. Yeah, the scene where like Kim's kind of getting literally washed clean because her sister washes her in a tub, and it's very kind of symbolic of like getting clean and getting cleansed and rising up and being reborn and rebirth. And she comes to the wedding and she's pretty and she looks nice, and her and Rachel kind of rebuild, and that's cool. Yeah, I definitely like the ending in this a lot more than Blue Valentine.
1,000%.
Okay.
Because it's somebody who's like trying, and there's like a moment like where everybody kind of like, even though it's a little dysfunctional, like there's like hope and optimism. Where Blue Valentine, you're just like, where are you walking to? Is it the 4th of July? Like, I have so many questions at the end. Like, I just have so many questions. I'm just like, are you going to get back together? Are you going to try this? Like, also, it's not helpful that Michelle Williams in Blue Valentine just keeps walking away. Like, I get the shutting down and like trying to separate or trying to like appease like a challenging person to like avoid conflict, but like all that, I was just like, what, you're gonna literally walk out on this marriage? Like, you have stuff at home, you got to go get your stuff, you know what I mean? Like, there's legit, like, when there's logistical problems, I get annoyed anytime in a movie or a TV show where they're like, oh, I'll pick you up at 8, and they're like, you didn't give a phone number, how are they supposed to find it? Like, that crap drives me crazy. It's those details.
Yeah, that's a very good point, Alyssa. Like, there's something very kind of theater like play about Blue Valentine. Like, it, like, part of it does feel like more of a play than a movie, like particularly when like he's like serenading her or like playing the guitar. Like, that seems like something you'd see in a play. Like, that doesn't seem like something you'd see in real life, or maybe like a different era, like the 70s. Like, it doesn't seem like something you'd see like today. So
it was improvised though. Ryan Gosling like made up that song, and so that was part of, I think, like, they didn't really know what they were going to get out of the whole thing, but they were just kind of like, we'll just hang out here and like film, like we'll just do this, we'll just tromp around. And like, I don't know if you know Ryan Gosling's musical side project, but if this, I don't know when this is going up, but for Halloween he's a band called Dead Man's Bones, and it's a very good, and it's like, it's a very good album. It's perfect for Halloween time. It's macabre, but it also has in a bunch of songs the Los Angeles something children's choir. So there's this like spooky children's choir that's like backing up. I think it's a two-piece band. It's him and this other guy. Dead Man's Bones. I cannot recommend it enough. It's very good.
That's awesome. No, I you definitely see on film how musically gifted Ryan Gosling is. He actually plays the piano in La La Land, and
Oh yeah. I never saw that one, but yeah.
that's really cool. That he actually did that for real. It took a few months and he practiced a lot, but he did get there. So that
Nice.
is actually him playing. So he is very musically inclined. Uh yeah, and it's cool. He sings and plays a song, and Valentine, it's awesome that he has a band side project. I feel like a lot of actors do. Oh, a lot of actors also do make music and record albums.
There's a lot of time between movies because you work or you're not working. Those are the two things you're doing.
And you know people.
Or you're doing press, I guess. So
you do know producers, so you're well connected. So
I'm just thinking like logistically, like there's a lot of in between time on sets and things like that. If you're not in the scene or they're getting set up and like that's why what's her name? Vanna White does Julia Roberts does knitting.
oh really?
Because she just has a lot of downtime. Yeah. So she likes to knit. That's her thing. What was your favorite? What was the most relatable character to you, or the most surprising character?
From Rachel Getting Married?
Yeah.
Cool. The most relatable to me personally, or the character I found the most accessible?
Either.
Okay. Uh, Probably Kieran, the best man, because I feel he's kind of the kind of the jaded funny guy who has like problems but is still, I think jaded's the wrong word, more complicated. I think complicated is a better word. He lives in Hawaii with Sydney. He's in AA, but he's like working on his problems, which is good. He and Kim have sex like the day before the wedding, or
like
and they
5 minutes after re-meeting after
yeah
an AA meeting.
yeah, and they just met each other for the first time, like but it's technically not a one night stand because I think they do make plans to like see each other again. So but I guess it depends on your definition of what a one night stand is. So just kind of getting this briefly because I think it's a very interesting topic. I feel like a one night stand is where it's a date. It's either a date or you meet someone randomly and hook up. You meet someone randomly and hook up, or it's a date, and then there's not a second date, or you don't meet each other again.
Yeah, it's one night and then you just don't interact again.
Yup, you meet each other once, you have sex, you're done, you don't see them ever again.
Or you don't interact in a romantic or sexual way, where you're just like, I had a one night stand with this person I kind of know. Like we see each other sometimes at like social events because we have the same friends, but like the intimacy of that is like kind of a one-time deal.
Okay. There are no subsequent dates. There is no more sex. It's just once and then it's done.
Yeah, or even possible romance because he kisses her at the end. Yeah. Even though he dances with somebody else at the wedding, like there are moments where they share. Do you know what I mean? Where they're like affectionate with each other. You know what I mean?
Yeah. that was cool. And I think part of the reason they connect is they're both broken people. So like they both kind of have vulnerabilities and they kind of tap into them, and you kind of feel them kind of being pulled closer together. So yeah, no, but yeah, the vulnerability in Kieran is like something I like, and he's also like extremely charming. So kind of the charm and like the vulnerability is something that I feel like I can connect to, or I feel like I have an understanding of what something like that is like. And the character is also clearly full of shit,
Oh, you
which
think so?
yeah, um,
Kieran, you think Kieran's full of shit?
yeah,
Interesting.
um, at least some of the time. Um, uh, I think he's honest and genuine, but I think he's like always trying to get away with something, and there's always some kind of motive, like ulterior motive or something. Okay.
Interesting. Okay.
No, but he's really interesting. I feel like if there's a sequel, and you know the writer, like maybe there should be a spin-off of Kieran. Maybe there should be a Kieran movie or a Kieran show. I feel like people would watch it. Because
Maybe. What does that actor do?
I've seen him in Masters of Sex, and he's very good in that. I'm not sure if
Oh, okay.
you watched that show.
I haven't, but I know the show.
Okay, it's on Showtime. It's very
Yeah,
good.
which I have a free trial of because of I had to stream Rachel getting married. I have a trial of it for another 6 days. Um,
Cool.
I really loved the character of Rachel.
Mm,
I loved how like honest she was and how complicated, because like she's a person who, like, one of the things she says that's so honest is like about how her father like dotes his concern on Kim, where she's like, I am here, like be here with me, like
yeah,
I need you to be my
yeah,
dad,
yeah,
also not us like be parents to Rachel, because the mother character is disengaged for the most part, like, and it's so clear that Rachel wants more of that relationship where she has different expectations of her mom.
yeah.
Meanwhile, I thought Carol was awesome. I thought the stepmom was
I think
freaking
Carol was
cool.
really interesting. Yeah, and she's so nice to Kim. Like she's genuinely warm and affectionate to Kim, and that's something I like because not everyone likes Kim. You know, Kim's kind of a polarizing character. Like, um, not necessarily like you either love her or hate her, but you can have different feelings towards her. So, but Carol's so nice to her and so unconditionally nice. Uh, but
I would watch a movie about Carol. She was great. I was just like, she's interesting. I couldn't tell. So one of the things that this movie does that's interesting that didn't feel forced, which I was surprised, was it's such a diverse movie in terms of like how many cultures and things are brought in. Because I was like, I couldn't really understand why they were all wearing saris. And I was like, is Carol Indian? Like, where does that tradition come from? Because it seemed unrelated, although maybe it came from
yeah,
the groom's character's background, and it was just like not
yeah,
as like pronounced, or maybe it's something that I'm just not familiar with that I missed that cue. But I was just like, it was cool. There was like lots of different foods, lots of different people. Everyone seemed like very naturally like that they would be friends because music brought everyone together. And it's a very waspy family on its face, where it's just like they're New England, Connecticut, have a big house, like a very, you know what I mean, an affluent family. But then they have like such an interesting group of people at the wedding that just felt very like fun and honest. But I just didn't understand where the saris came from. I was just confused. That part was confusing. I felt for the best friend who, Emma, who made the dresses and was like really type A, because it was weird how like angry she was with Rachel, but also like, or not with Rachel, with Kim, but like also if you're somebody's best friend and you see them getting hurt by their sister's actions all the time, like that has to, like, or like you feel like you have to speak up for your friend because she can't say the things to her sister. Like I was very sympathetic to Emma, even though like she was pretty unlikable, honestly. I was like, I'm so sympathetic to how like, she could never break into that bond of sisterhood, even though she had been more, in some ways, more of a sister to Rachel than Kim had ever been.
Yeah, and that is a good point because like Rachel does like Emma pretty much in every possible way more than Kim. Like Rachel clearly likes Emma more, but there is something about being siblings and also something about Kim being responsible for their brother Ethan's death, which I think in a weird, very kind of twisted way kind of even brings Rachel and Kim closer together because it creates
the life is precious moment where you're just like I've already lost one sibling, I can't lose my other one.
And it's just added context like between them. Like it just like deepens their narrative.
Trauma bonding.
Yeah, which is like tragically sad, but like
but is real. Like it's a real effect of like going through a difficult time with other people.
Yeah. No. So yeah. Yeah. Like getting back to the script, I actually really like that thread. I really like that subplot. I really like the brother dying. I think the best scene in the movie is where Sydney and the dad are loading the dishwasher in the kitchen, and
that was such a funny, weird scene.
And it's so real too. Like it's such a real scene. Like you feel like a father-in-law would put that much pressure on like the son-in-law, and he'd be like, "Okay, let's see what you can do. Like, can you be a real husband? Can you load a dishwasher?"
Right? Yeah. Yeah. No, totally. And like, oh God, how gut-wrenching. That was an example of the emotional roller coaster where there's this really high energy, fun scene. It finally becomes about Rachel and Sydney and like this relationship and the family and everyone's involved. And then like, he needs more plates. Kim gets more plates, and then Ethan's special plate is like in the stack, and it just like breaks the moment where like they can, where it just like pulls the focus like basically back onto Kim. Like even in this like high energy moment where literally everyone is like around cheering for like for Sydney and the dad, but like
and
go ahead.
There's a really good line that Rosemary DeWitt has as Rachel, how she was thinking a lot about Ethan during her wedding, or during the preparation or everything going on. She says she's thinking a lot about Ethan, so he is very much connected to it. So that's probably part of the reason the dad got really emotional and really kind of shook up over it, because it's a big time for the family. And there's another scene where it's a big spoiler moment. So if you don't want this spoiled, just skip this part, fast forward, already stop watching. But okay. But actually, I don't mean that. Just skip this part, and then you can see the end, or you can listen on the end if I upload this on Apple Music or Spotify, which I do intend on doing. So I will do that eventually, but it will be on YouTube first. But so the spoiler section, Rachel is pregnant.
Oh yeah.
So that's a really kind of big reveal, and it's also why it's emotional, because it's like new life. Which could it be Ethan's spirit is Rachel's child? That's
Rachel hopes it's a boy. At one point she says that. I just made that connection. She tells her mom that she hopes it's a boy.
Yeah. I personally believe in reincarnation. So I feel like it could be Ethan. So yeah, the more I think about that thread, the more I like it. And it also really worked for me in watching it too, and I found it very emotionally affecting. And kind of what you're talking about, the emotional roller coaster. Yeah, the Ethan thread that just like breaks your heart, like completely, like, whew, right, like all of the Kim stuff is just like, like just like really emotionally draining. But
Difficult.
yeah,
Yeah.
but the Ethan stuff is just like heartbreaking. Um, um, yeah. Do they get
How do
into
you?
how old he was? Did they say he was like 6?
Yeah, he was young. She was 16, and it was her younger brother. He was
Yeah,
also in a car seat, so I feel like he would have been like at 5 or younger.
yeah.
Um, what did you think about the scene with the mom? Like
Oh,
about
mm, and it's a shame
the
because
mom and being like, "Why did you let me be in charge?"
yeah, it's a shame because I really like Deborah Winger and I really like the movie An
Oh, you
Officer and a
froze.
Gentleman.
You froze for a
Um,
second.
okay. And like, let's see. So that scene, that didn't really work that much for me. Like, the stuff with the mom in it, I didn't really like. Um, like, to be honest with you, like, um, and like I said before, there are parts of this script that don't work for me.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not sure. I think Deborah Winger might have been miscast, or like, now it feels like, I know, because you're supposed to root for the dad and Carol. Like, you're supposed to be team dad and Carol, and I totally am. Like, the dad and Carol are so likable, just in every way. Like, they're just these like lovely, like, such unconditionally just awesome parents. Like, they love their kids so much, they'll do anything for their kids. The dad will bend over backwards for Kim and probably Rachel too. And there's just like so much love. And the mom, I think, is warm too, but in a kind of different way. And she's kind of wound up in her own life with her new husband, and they kind of do their own thing. Um, uh, I really like when they leave the reception and the moment that they have with Kim and Rachel as they leave the reception. I really like that moment. That's probably one of my favorite moments in the movie. But now the scene when Kim's at the mom's house, that really pisses me off because I really don't at all. Like, I feel like it's unearned. It's flimsy. It's flat. The acting is flat. Tonally, it's wrong. I honestly would say that's a terrible scene. So, uh, and this is one of my favorite movies. And oh, but also a testament to how good of a director and filmmaker Jonathan Demme is, because this scene feels like it could have been in a different movie. Like, this isn't just one movie. This is a few different movies, and it could also be a documentary on a wedding that actually happened. So,
Or a dysfunctional family.
yes. So this is a few different movies. Like, seriously.
I feel like with that scene, one of the things that's like, I agree, it feels out of place. And it, like, at one point I questioned, like, is
Yeah.
this a way for like Kim's character, the character of Kim, to like deflect responsibility, to like alleviate her guilt, to be like, why did you leave me? Like, instead of her being responsible for like being under the influence and like being responsible for her brother's death, she's just like, well, why did you put me in charge? But it seems like she's never asked that question before. And one of the things that's interesting is the mom is more like, wants to treat her her daughters more like their peers and not like a mother. Like, she never parented them. And so I also question, like, did she just never really parent them and she was kind of absent as a mom, or did the death of Ethan, make her more absent and like make her like withdraw from her kids? So, and there's no answer to that because we don't know, but like
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
one of the questions where it's like, she's kind of playing this absent, aloof mother figure that it's so clear that they both need. But she like can't be that for them. But why can't she be that for them? Because that's not who she is, or is it because like she couldn't, like, because it's too painful?
Yeah.
And I don't know the answer.
Mm. No, yeah, like you look at the mom's house and kind of like the East the East Asian motif, and like this seems like a mom who definitely went through a rebuild. Like this mom went through a rebuilding phase, and she used something to kind of reshape her life. And
Yeah.
maybe the Ethan death was like the turning point. So
Or
that's a really good question to ask Alyssa. That's not really addressed in the movie.
or maybe it's like her new like husband. Maybe
Yeah.
like his personality is so strong that she just like the Michelle Williams character, she just absorbs his personality. You know what I mean? Like, or like, do you know what I mean? Where like the relationship is more, that relationship is more important than like her relationship to her kids. Because she's like, it's weird because like in the end, you kind of like, she makes the excuse that she has to basically parent her husband. She's like, oh, he's hopeless without me. Like he can't pack for a trip. Like I need to go with him. And they're like, you need to be here with me. Like I'm married. Like she says, I want my mom. Like,
Yeah.
and there's this rejection. So it's just really interesting, like how that plays out. Because I think the mom is like relatable, even if she's
Yeah.
unlikable. Because she's just like a lady who just is like, doesn't have a great relationship with her daughters, but still like loves them and cares about them.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
isn't like that, doesn't need to be as involved as like the dad does. And also like the dad and Carol are so good at it. She's just like, just let them have their time. Like they like doing this stuff. I don't like doing this stuff. Like, because like they have that moment in the wedding where like the dad and the mom, like who are divorced, like they have that moment of like, we did this, like our daughter is married, we're so happy, like, and it's clear that like she in her own way is like supportive of whatever, like of what he clearly like he's so emotional and like engaged, and she's like, he can be engaged, that's fine, I'm good with my place in life, I know my role.
Yeah. Let's see. So right now, Alyssa, if you and I had our way, I would have a Kieran spin-off movie, and you would have a Carol spin-off movie. Now would it be the origin story of Carol? Would it be what she was like before she was wife number 2 for the dad? Or would it be a where is she now Carol story?
I'm curious if she has her own like stepkids or her own kids from another marriage. I'm curious just to know, like, I guess what I like about her is like she's just such an interesting figure, like to step into a family who has such chaos and pain, and then to be there with this like man who's like clearly so loving and like giving, and then to like be a support to him, like, and his like difficult, his daughters who can be difficult. Like his daughters aren't necessarily difficult people, but they're complex people with like pain, right? And it's just kind of like, what's her deal? She's an onlooker. Like, what kind of interactions has she had with these girls, like growing up, or, like what we didn't see because the movie is about Kim. Like, I would have loved to see a moment where like Carol and Rachel have like a conversation in like Rachel's room about like Kim being supportive, or like, all this kind of stuff, like she's not acknowledged or thanked in like really in like any of the reception, like, oh, like they're like, oh, we have to acknowledge my dad, like, yeah, but like next to your dad is Carol, literally like keeping your dad's like crap together when you guys are like tearing him apart, you know?
Yeah.
That's how I feel.
Yeah. No, I feel like Carol is definitely like the rock, and I feel like, yeah, maybe after like a blow up with Kim, like having Carol calm Rachel down or something would have been a nice scene in the movie. So
It's
yeah.
so interesting too because like Rachel and Kim's mom doesn't want to be a mom, but like Carol, as far as we know, also didn't want to be a mom, but like steps up to the challenge, right? Like we
Yeah,
don't know
yeah,
that she has any other kids, but she like is 100% there for like, you
yeah,
know, Rachel. She's like bringing out watermelon. She's making sure people are taken care of. You know what I mean? Like she's in the background, like at her desk, probably writing checks for, or like making sure invoices are getting paid for this wedding. Like,
oh yeah,
you know, she's just like there as such a support.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, like I, yeah.
Do you ever watch Degrassi Junior High, The Next Generation?
I did.
The dad reminds me of the actor who plays Emma's dad,
Yes.
who was in the original Degrassi,
Yep.
who becomes the principal, I think.
Ooh, I didn't watch that far into it. I think I only made it to like season 4 or 5. Which was still which was still
When
principal.
Drake was Jimmy.
Yeah, yeah. Oof. I know. Right. Like, honestly, if you want to get kids to watch Degrassi, say Drake is in the show.
I thought Jimmy was a very realistic character for a teenage boy, honestly. And I liked Drake as Jimmy. I thought that was great because in the same way Ryan Gosling was in the Mickey Mouse Club, like Degrassi was the Mickey Mouse. Degrassi, The Next Generation was the Mickey Mouse Club for like now times.
And Drake also came from a poor family. Like
Interesting.
He didn't come from money. So obviously Degrassi opened a lot of doors for him, and there's an episode where he actually raps on the show. Which is cool.
Throwback.
Yeah, dude. Absolutely. Yeah, but getting back to the dad is similar to the teacher character in in Degrassi, who plays Emma's dad,
Mr. Simpson,
Yep.
something like
Mr.
that.
Simpson, who you also get like the warm and exciting teacher from, and he's just like a really nice guy, just like just like so nice and excited about just like helping people. So, and you get that from the dad too. He's just like such a nice dude. Like seriously, like he wants to make everyone food and just like take care of everyone. He's like,
He made
all you
everybody
people are staying in
hamburgers.
my house. Yeah. And like I'm actually surprised more of them don't stay at the house, because I feel like he'd be okay with that. He'd be like, okay, all of you can just stay on the floor. It's okay. Okay.
Yeah.
No, but there are so many things to like about this movie, and like part of it, like there's just like musicians in every frame too. Like there's like musicians all over the place in the movie, and random people play the reception, and the musical numbers are so good. Like the music's so good. Sydney's like younger brother, I think, like plays at the rehearsal dinner, and that's cool.
Yeah, the drummer.
Yeah. And his cousin who's in the military, he films the wedding, or he films the rehearsal and everything. He's like the videographer. It's such a pleasant movie for the wedding stuff.
Yeah.
The wedding stuff is pleasant, and then you have the Kim drama, which is just like the movie. So but I really like the wedding stuff. And of course it's Anne Hathaway, so you're gonna get like a like you're gonna get a tour de force performance. Like you're gonna get a powerhouse like you're gonna get a big, good acting performance.
It's
So
Anne Hathaway with eyeliner. You know, what's not to love about that in some ways? Even if she's terrible, you're still like, girl, you're a force to be reckoned with. We get it.
yeah, yeah, like, and no one cries on camera like Anne Hathaway. I think she's a good crier. Like, honestly, if we would say a crying on camera Hall of Fame, I'd put her in it. Great tears in Les Mis, excellent tears in this movie, particularly and like when she actually leaves the mom and then like the tub, you get some good tears from Anne Hathaway, and you can see that they come from like a very real place, or they look real. like
Yeah.
like there's some crying that looks fake on camera, but Anne Hathaway like is like a really good actress.
Not
So
gonna lie, I think it's because she can make her like nose turn red. Her skin is very fair. I think that adds to like the belief.
oh man.
This is awesome. Rachel Getting Married is one that I needed to revisit, and I'm glad that I did.
Cool, man.
Because I had seen it before. I went to the Jenny Lumet screenwriting thing, and then like I hadn't seen it since then, so it was good to see.
Yeah.
But man, I forgot. I was just like Anne Hathaway. This Kim character like feels like people I know. It feels like relatives that I have that we're like we don't talk to anymore because we're like this behavior is unacceptable. Like the substance abuse and addiction part is really hard, and like there's tons of compassion there for that, but the need to like make it about you, it's just like this isn't I can't let that fly in my real life. I don't have energy for that shit.
Oh man. Oh boy. Yeah. Yeah. So I guess we should probably put a bow on this because I think we're
We've cracked the 3 hour mark.
yeah.
Not in the recording maybe, but in our time talking.
Yeah. Which I think we cracked it in our first one too.
Yeah, we can chat about movies for sure.
Let's see. So the question I have for you, Alyssa, is should have Kim stayed with Dad and Carol? Do you think it would have been better for Kim, better for Kim's future, and better for Kim's well-being if she would have stayed with Dad and Carol rather than, I don't think she went back to rehab, or maybe she did,
See,
but
I believe she went back to rehab. So I
okay,
think it's good that she went back to rehab.
okay,
Maybe not so much for the rehab part, but just like having support and then also having like a structure away from a house in like not chaos, but just like the one of the things I read was like the dad's care and concern is like interpreted by the Kim character as suspicion and mistrust. Where the dad, and like to be fair, she wrecked his car, and I don't think she told him about it, like in the movie. But
yeah,
like she, like he's just like, "Have you eaten something? Like, what can I do? Where are you going? Look, let me drive you." Like he's just overly concerned as a father because he wants to be there and support.
yeah,
But but that's not like a vibe that they can do right now because of like where she's at
yeah,
and who she is at the moment.
yeah, yeah. Mm. Yeah, no, but I feel like Kim should have so I'll take the contrarian perspective. I'll say I think she should have stayed with Dad and Carol, because I feel like the wedding was a good place to rebuild, and like kind of form anew and kind of rebirth, and kind of what you're talking about, the hero's journey. Which, like, what is the next step, I guess, from there? uh, but I feel like some good ground was made, and I feel like, because Kim's such a fractured character, like, since the wedding was very happy and positive, maybe she can build off that, and like she can forget about like some of the hardships, and she can kind of just make these new connections and kind of heal a few of the cracks, So I'd honestly be fairly optimistic about what can happen um to Kim under Dad and Carol's influence. And as we're talking, like, we both obviously love the Dad in the Carol character. Like, we love Dad and Carol. Like, Drew and Alyssa are team Carol and Dad.
Yeah.
So no, I think she should have stayed with them. That's what I think. I don't think she would have gotten the job. Or I don't think she would have lasted long, like maybe like 2 weeks. With her dad's
A
friend.
job she's not equipped for and has never done before, being a publicist. Yeah. But it's not a way to get set up for success, is having a stressful job that you're just like, I have none of these skills.
Yeah, and Kim is pretty flaky, so
She needs to build those skills, of like having a job for a little bit or doing a project. What I do like to think, and sorry to cut you off, but I do think the compromise here is that Rachel has a baby shower is the next time, right? Like, Kim goes back to rehab until the baby shower when she's like out, and then she's just like, now I'm gonna be there. Like, it's a good taste into what life could be like at home. But she also could, like, she goes out, has like these conflicts, she gets new insight into like how her actions are affecting other people or how she feels about her relationships, and then she can go back, process them in group therapy and rehab, and then like have better skills to come back more equipped to deal with like new things when it's not a wedding.
Yeah.
What we're saying is, Jenny Lumet, please write Rachel has a baby shower.
Rachel has a baby shower, or Kim at the baby shower. Okay.
Yeah. It's funny you say that, because I always confuse Rachel's getting married with Margot at the wedding, which came out like a year or two like close. So I always confuse the two movies.
Yeah.
Even though they're like unrelated and they came out kind of at the same time, but there's similar themes of dysfunctional families and these momentous like rituals.
Yeah. And they're both like indie movies, and I think Noah Baumbach directed he also did The Squid and the Whale. He also did Margot at the Wedding, which
has Nicole Kidman in it.
Nicole Kidman's awesome. I love Nicole Kidman. I think she's in Rabbit Hole, or either, and Rabbit Hole is very similar to Rachel Getting Married. Like, the Ethan subplot and Rachel Getting Married is basically the whole plot in Rabbit Hole. Like, they're recovering from losing a child. If you like Rachel Getting Married, you'll probably like Rabbit Hole. I think Rachel Getting Married is a little better because there's more to offer. It's kind of a bigger movie. It is about loss and addiction and struggle, but it's also about a wedding, and it's such a good wedding movie. But Margot the Wedding has I'm not a big fan of the movie, but there's some interesting scenes. I think it has one of the more interesting scenes about teenage discovery and teenage gratification in it that there's a scene where the son just tells Nicole Kidman, I masturbated. I went in the bathroom and I did it. And she's like, you don't have to tell me that or something. And I felt like it was very charming and I felt like it was very real. But that's Noah Baumbach. He does the slice of life. He does like the real meta problems with family indie kind of mumblecore, I guess you would call it.
Mumblecore movies.
Yeah, which that is a genre. If you've seen a Joe Swanberg movie, he's like the mumblecore master. Drinking Buddies, which is one of my favorite movies. I love Drinking Buddies so much. Which I would pair with Blue Valentine because it's very similar to Blue Valentine. And Happy Christmas, I think, is also Joe Swanberger. It's his wife. But yeah, Joe Swanberg, very good at mumblecore, which is kind of like indie life as it happens type movies. It's like we just turn a camera on and there's a lot of improvised scenes. Nice. Which you get in Drinking Buddies, which you get with Anna Kendrick. There's a scene in Drinking Buddies where she refers to herself. She calls herself a shorty, which is in her book. So I think she did actually improvise that. I think that was Anna Kendrick's line, that she said that she's a shorty. So I think that is something that she would say. So
nice.
You get great you get great improvisation in mumblecore movies. I'm not sure if there's any improvisation in Rachel Getting Married, but honestly, the actors are so comfortable with it. They're so like comfortable with each other, and like they have such good chemistry that I feel like there could be improv in it. I'm not sure if there was. I feel like there is improv in some Jonathan Demme movies, possibly.
I feel like there probably wasn't as much, like there was like general blocking, but not active blocking because of the way they were able to be agile with filming.
Yeah.
But yeah. I do have to go in a minute.
Yeah.
We're recording late into the evening.
Indeed.
So I'm glad we did this on a Friday.
Yeah. This was really fun. This was cool. Okay. Thank you guys for watching and listening. This has been Drew and me with Alyssa Truskowski. I'm Drew Garrison. Thank you guys for listening and watching, and have a good night.
Tune in next time. Yeah.
Cool, man.
This is great. Sorry, I don't know if you want to stop recording. I have to run to the restroom, and I was like, I'm gonna die.
It's totally cool. Let's see. Let's see.
This was a great conversation, though. I had a lot of fun talking about these movies, and I'm really glad. Like I said, I probably wouldn't have like volunteered to rewatch